Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for doing the different time today, the abbreviated meeting. Um, I'm going to do a quick roll call, and then I'll read the script. So, from members, um, Tim Brain,
Here.
Doug Rose,
Here.
Elizabeth Phelps,
Here.
Emily Jenkins,
Here.
Sarah Boyce,
Here.
Peter Brace. Okay, and intended speakers, expected speakers, RJ Turcott,
Here.
Greg O'Brien.
He's not an expected speaker.
Oh,
Shannon will be on at 11 and she is.
okay, staff.
Leah, here.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, good morning. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. Please be aware that other people may be able to see you, and take care not to share your device's screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please silence all devices and phones. For items with public comment, after committee members have finished their discussion on an agenda item, the chair will afford members of the public up to 3 minutes to speak. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their name and any affiliations. To give public comment, you must be recognized by the chair and speak through the chair. There is to be no crosstalk with others in attendance. To be recognized for making a public comment, use the raised hand feature by clicking the React tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Then click on the raise hand button. When you've finished your comment, please click the lower hand button. It's important for me to note that CRAC isn't required by law to take public comment. We do so because we need your invaluable input. We view public comment as a privilege, so please remain respectful in your comments and do not disparage other speakers or the members of this committee. Okay. Um, I'll take public comment now, on anything that is not on this agenda. Okay. Approval of the minutes. We have no minutes. Okay, no minutes. Um, Discussion with the Nantucket Land and Water Council about the State of the Harbor Forum. Their list of provisions from the optional higher standards bylaw and questions for the committee. Go ahead, RJ.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, so I'll be brief. I mean, our idea for this is our 10th State of the Harbor Forum this year is to sort of talk to folks about the parts of Shannon's presentation and model bylaw that specifically would affect them. So right now on the website, we have a link to check where you are in the floodplain, whether you're in the FEMA floodplain. And we're going to have a couple of computers at State of the Harbor, at Great Harbor, set up for people walking in who didn't go on the website, but still are curious and don't know, to see if their property's in the floodplain, so that we have some attendees who are ready to talk a little bit, are primed even slightly to have a conversation about their property and their house and their pool or their driveway that extends into the floodplain on one elbow of it, and sort of go from there with some of the provisions of the model bylaw that Shannon has found have been the talking points in the other communities. So obviously open to, if you any of you guys have any additions to the talking points and provisions, which is a combination of things that definitions we'd like to add to the existing wetlands bylaw, which doesn't need town meeting, and the Concom can just approve it. And some of the ones that would have to go through zoning and would require a town meeting vote, which are a little more difficult. But trying to think of someone with a homeowner who comes to the State of the Harbor who has a house on Pocomo Bluff and they're really concerned about erosion on their property, or maybe their neighbor has erosion control and it's permitted, or somebody who lives in Quays, so they're not quite on a bluff, but maybe they're next to a wetland and it floods a lot and they want to know how that's going to impact their property going forward, or somebody downtown, but really looking at it through the lens of people who live on the harbor and how adding some of these provisions that Shannon is talking about will affect their property. And that gets into some of the questions that we've sort of gotten together in the packet to ask folks for feedback on. And I loved personally the idea of asking them, have you done anything coastal resilience wise on your property? How did that go? Have you tried to do something coastal resilience wise and couldn't? And do you have any sort of, I wish I could have done it this way. This would have gone so much more smoothly for me as a homeowner and it would have got done type scenarios. The sky's really the limit. And I know that there are some folks, especially along Monomoy, who are, if they chime in, are going to say, hey, I moved back, I retreated already, and I can't really go any further. What do I do? And there's going to be people who are going to be talking about the historic value of structures once you raise them, which has been an interesting conversation with Shannon about what we consider historic and what we're valuing and how the bylaw can reflect that. So really, at this point, fairly open-ended. All we know is that we're going to be trying to get some real feedback from people so that we don't try to add some of these definitions to the wetland bylaw or provisions to the zoning bylaw blind and have it get shot down at town meeting or at a Concom meeting because there were going to be a bunch of homeowners who would have said something earlier if we just had asked. So, like I said, pretty open-ended as far as what we can discuss and ask, but we are trying to knock the big ones, especially any of the controversial ones, out of the way early. So, with that, I guess I can turn it back over to you, Peter, and we can have any questions. I see Joanna and Tim have their hands raised. So, thank you for letting me speak.
Go ahead, Joanna.
Hi, RJ. How are you? So I have a question. So are you going to talk about the use of the MCFRM in the wetlands bylaw? And are you going to talk about the other modeling? I mean, how is this going to get discussed?
So I think, and we brought it up in 2024, MCFRM,
Yeah.
and I think that's pertinent discussion to have. I thought it was then. I'd love to have it now. But as far as the provisions themselves, they'll work no matter what model we end up using, right? So like we can, I think, have the conversation about what we want to base it off of, but as long as we get design flood elevation, the correct version of that into the provisions, it'll be there for us to utilize when we're ready to raise a structure, right? So it's certainly something, I think it's too technical for the crowd that's going to be at Stay of the Harbor. I think that they're going to be homeowners who are coming in, probably a mix of seasonal and year-rounders who are going to be asking, you know, am I in a spot that is the house going to have to get raised? And whether it's 3 feet or 4 feet, I think we can debate that later and have a conversation about that later for sure. There's nothing that I've seen that is specifically like not going to work if we change the elevation model.
I think I think that's fair. I just think it's misleading for people to think that there are two things out there that are not in agreement with each other. Number one, and I think that I mean, in terms of how high we're lifting houses, I agree. I don't think it really matters. I think that we need to agree on whatever height that's going to be. I think that some of the other, in general, the thing that I have come to conclusion on in like the last 6 weeks is that as we talk about water problems, I'm seeing that these things are discussed separately and in silos, and they are not presented to the community of Nantucket at large as an overall systemic problem, which I have come to understand that they are all interrelated. So we are talking about drinking water, private wells, septic systems, drought, coastal flooding, harbor water quality, eelgrass, and scallops. all of these things are interrelated, and we are not doing a great job at telling this and explaining this story as it relates to any of the single things that we're working on. Like eelgrass and scallops has a story, coastal resiliency has a story, stormwater management has a story. Instead of kind of bringing these things together and explaining to people that in reality, they're all interrelated. And I think that this is critical.
I think we can incorporate that. I think we can
That's
incorporate
awesome.
an explanation of the models that are mentioned, right?
Yep.
Noah, McFerm, whichever you want to do, and we can dedicate a portion of the conversation to explaining how all those things are tied together in the plan. I can work with Shannon and Emily, and we can figure out how to work that in. Either in the
Great.
beginning of the presentation, maybe in the beginning before we really get into individuals, but we can work that in for sure.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, RJ, and thank you, Joanna. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, just a question, RJ. Do you expect commercial property owners to be in attendance or in part of the discussion in this?
They should be part of the discussion always. I don't know who's going to show up. We invite everybody, and maybe somebody will show up who's got a commercial operation. Open to suggestions, but we aren't like, we're just letting whoever shows up shows up.
Thanks.
Thanks, RJ. Thanks, Tim. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. RJ, thanks so much too for having us kind of weigh in a little bit before State of the Harbor. So looking at all the information, we've heard Shannon give her like talks before, and it's I appreciate what you were saying of overall this is very technical for something like the State of the Harbor. People absorb at different levels, and so I appreciate you knowing that ahead of time. Like it's like how are we presenting this information? So some of my comments are just suggestions for kind of leading people in. And to Joanna's point, I had said something about like the introduction too, like however you're going to introduce it, but have that like very broad, like these are all the issues. And some years at State of the Harbor we talked about this, and some we talked about this, and some we talked about this. Today we're going to talk about this part, but they are all interrelated. And then maybe you guys already have this. I just was thinking about how we've presented some of these specific things in the past. And the other thing I'll say is I really like how you were introducing the scenario questions because it puts people in a positive framework. Like, what are the opportunities you have taken advantage of so far? I mean, obviously it's to combat something that is seen as a negative and obviously affecting their property, but it's like great. So like you're kind of coming at it from a positive way. The other thing I'll say is I think before you get into the like, do you want to know about your property? Are you in an area where you need to do something? Is to present very cartoon basic examples that are no real place. And I know there are some schematics in here, but even the schematics are a bit confusing. But like color coded, like here's a building and here are the different layers and here is the different zones. And so in this zone, you'd have these options. In this zone, you'd have these options. And let kind of lead the horse to water, but let them decide for themselves whether they think that their property might fall into those areas or whether it's a commercial property or their own property. Because I think I have found if people see a map of a real place, they're going to look for a house they know, they're going to look for a location they know, and someone they know that lives in that spot, whether it's them or not, or they're going to feel called out. And so that's my example. Of course, there will definitely be people that were like, well, show me my one house that's like on Puckwell Point or something. And then you can lead those people and show them because they'll want to know. But I think a lot of people are like like that cartoon example to walk people through. Or have it be like on Martha's Vineyard or something that it's like not us and it's like somewhere else. And then you can make your points for Nantucket. I think people receive the information so much more when they don't feel like they're doing something wrong. And then cite the options of things to do or not do, like maybe don't build a pool in this area. Cite that as here are opportunities in these areas, or the as a constructive direction to go in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I love that. We will try to put together some example sites from the vineyard instead. We'll find some Oak Bluffs houses and commercial properties to make our points. That's a perfect. Yeah, I don't want any. It's such a small town. It's just crazy how they will do that. I've seen them do that. You're
Yeah,
so
and
right.
I mean, because if you mention Sconset, even if you're not talking about Sconset Bluff and Geotubes, if
Mhm.
you say the word Sconset, people have a reaction that is
Yeah.
outside of what you're talking about. So I think in that way, that can really help talk through the actual points of the zoning and what is and the other piece. I'm sorry, I was looking at my bullet points. The other piece to mention specifically too is where like the here we're at here's where we're at now, and then here's like the added options and why those are so important, because I think we don't want to get confused. I think it could potentially be confusing with like what is now, what is potential future, and what you're advocating for.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
Sarah. Um, Liz, did you have something?
Thanks, Peter. Sarah just kind of said what I was going to say about, showing the projections as well, not just the current floodplain, just to be transparent about everything that we're talking about.
Okay. Anybody else? No other comments? No questions? Okay. Um, all right. Thanks, RJ. All right. Do we have Shannon yet? Yes, we do. No, wait, there she is. Okay. Welcome, Shannon. Okay, so presentation on model floodplain overlay district zoning bylaw, optional higher standards, and discussion on which regulations are pertinent for Nantucket with Shannon Holst. Go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everybody. So this is I have a presentation, but also happy to just have a discussion if people had an opportunity to take a look at the massive amount of homework that we gave you with short notice. Did anyone get a chance to look at those? Okay, all right. Some of you did. Okay. Then how about before, Anne, did you get a chance to take a look at what Emily and RJ pulled together for their what they think should be talking points for the State of the Harbor Forum? Did people see that? Okay. Why don't we start there, and then we can talk about those, and then I'll bring up anything else that I think we might be missing, and can go through the presentation briefly. So, okay, so for those who did have a chance to take a look, did anything stand out to you that was not brought up on the notes from RJ and Emily? Leah.
Go ahead, Leah.
So it's in the packet. I'm the red line. But I added the coastal resilience zone, whether to expand the floodplain both vertically and horizontally, and then which target year to use.
Yep, great.
I think that'll be a pretty big conversation too.
Agreed. Yep. Maybe I should start with, does anybody have questions on what they read? Because I don't expect you all to perfectly understand it. Peter, I'll defer to you to answer questions or to call on folks.
Yeah. Doug, go ahead.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Shannon. I was not 100% confident that I was seeing the full package from Land and Water Council. I see one page here with
Yep, that's
Leah's
correct.
notes on it. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
It
And
feels
then
like
there were
it's
3 different documents from me.
right.
Yeah.
So are we commenting strictly on that one page? Is that what you're looking for?
So what we're ultimately the goal here is, so the State of the Harbor Forum, we're going to be discussing the bylaws. It's an opportunity to get public feedback on what folks might be interested in seeing, and we want your help refining what we talk about during that. So that one page is what RJ and Emily had pulled out. But if there are other things that you think should be discussed in that public setting, then we want to add to that.
So the first page that we saw with the red notes on it are Land and Water Council's comments regarding the PowerPoint presentation that you see starting page 58.
And specifically, the PowerPoint presentation is a slimmed down, simplified version of the 3 documents that you were sent. So the coastal resilience article, the zoning, which is a bylaw, the zoning bylaw, and the performance standards.
Great, thank you. That helps. So I guess one of the comments I would have is, not having attended a State of the Harbor conference in the past, I'm not that familiar with who attends. I would hope that more than just coastal homeowners and property owners would be in the audience, that there might be content in that discussion that is relevant to people who live in Mid-Island, but just want to understand why it is that these kinds of upgrades to our regulations and bylaws are actually in the interests of the island, right? I think if you direct all of your commentary to those people who have, shall I say, self-interest at stake, I think that's going to invite a lot of pushback that may be premature. And I think that the most important page that I saw in your PowerPoint presentation was, I think it's in the packet, it's page 59, but it's the one that calls out, I think, 6 bullet points about why we're even doing this. What is the purpose of this, and why, as a Nantucket taxpayer, should I be supportive of this discussion, as opposed to, digging in my heels and saying, no, don't change my property rights, if you will, right? Because I don't think that is anybody's intent. Our intent here is to protect the island from what we know is coming. And so the more you can kind of elevate the conversation around what's the big picture need for this, the desire for this, how is this in my interest as a semi-disinterested non-coastal property owner? And I think, the one thing that I felt was a little bit missing in that page 59 was just the fact that, but if we do this right, it could benefit all taxpayers by somewhat shielding them or helping us manage the risks that will come when we have to build more infrastructure or build more roads or, what have you, right? We're trying to protect ourselves against what we know is coming. And then one last piece on this is, I think there is an opportunity. It may be difficult and maybe unrealistic, but I think it would be worthy at an early stage like this to call out the fact that there is an opportunity anytime you endeavor to change bylaws and regulatory frameworks to try to eliminate contradictions and help streamline the process of permitting. I mean, imagine that if you could improve our regulatory frameworks, not only to help protect us financially, but also help minimize the amount of pain in the ass that the permitting process represents today. So maybe wishful thinking, but that would be something I would lobby for. Thanks.
Great.
Before I let Liz go, Doug, I think you're kind of almost saying what I wanted to say was that at the start of this, someone, myself as chairman, and probably Leah and maybe RJ, needs to explain way back why the CRP exists, why we're doing this, looking at the 10 to 20 to 30 to 40, 50 years ahead. And the reason that we are here talking at the State of the Forum about this to individual property owners to try and solicit some sort of response from them is that we have a plan and we're trying to help them understand that the plan is there for them. And now we're grinding down to the actual citizens that are most affected by the plan. And this State of the Harbor Forum is for them to see that, to see we've created the plan. This is where we are. This is what the committee does. now we've gotten to the point that we're, you know, we're looking at these higher standards, these options, because that's where we are in the process of our long range planning. Does that kind of say what you were trying to say, Doug?
Totally agree. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Liz.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, Shannon. I just wanted to clarify for my own understanding. So the coastal zoning bylaw, we would need that to pass if we wanted to expand the existing floodplain, and then apply additional regulations to that expansion. But we could still expand our existing regulations for the designated FEMA flood zone by just revising the wetland regulations and revising the town floodplain regulations.
Exactly.
Okay.
Nailed it, Liz. Yep, exactly.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. And then so my concern in looking at all these regs, was there don't seem to be water dependent uses really called out as, exceptions or not meeting the definition of structures. And that was just a little bit concerning to me because, are these applying to like docks and boardwalks and public spaces? Being a representative of the land bank, that just kind of jumped out at me as, is this going to make it harder to permit projects like that where we want to, move houses back, but maybe put some infrastructure for the public, along the water. So I was just wondering about that, if you had thought about that at all.
Yeah, so the only way that we really, you'll see there is a call out for no new impervious surfaces or patios or things like that, on individual private properties, but there should be a variance process. That's what a variance is for, situations like this where you want a public benefit. The only time that we do explicitly call out water dependent uses is in the provision that deals with hazardous materials, storage of hazardous materials, gas and fuel docks. That is one of those situations where fuel docks have to exist somewhere. And so there's an exception called out for those. Otherwise, water dependent uses are not specifically called out. We can certainly talk about that and adding that. One of the reasons why we were a bit hesitant about it is because this is all based on the National Flood Insurance Program. The foundation is in the National Flood Insurance Program, which the town's regs are already also National Flood Insurance Program regs. The way the NFIP and therefore the state building code that deal with water dependent uses is an extremely narrow definition. So we've kind of tried to avoid specifically calling out water dependent uses because it gets a little bit tricky, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't. And we could certainly talk about that. I think so that's the sort of thing that we're certainly not going to have an opportunity to put into it before July, but that's the sort of thing that we could bring up for discussion.
Great, thank you.
And before I go to Sarah, thank you, Shannon. I think one of the three of us, are you going to be in attendance, Shannon? Or are you going to be?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
I'll be
in the
leading
beginning,
this.
or when a property owner talks about, well, what do I do? I don't have much room. Someone needs to explain to them, if they don't already know, what a front yard setback is, because a lot of their movement inland is going to depend on that. If they have no more room to move toward the street, then you have to take that elephant in the room and say, look, then you're going to have to move your house, or you're going to have to go up a certain amount, or they have to understand the parameters of zoning for a house on a lot on the shore. I think that's crucial. It's almost like we got to give people a primer before we start hitting them with all the stuff. Primer on zoning.
I am not the right person to do that.
Okay. I could kind of do it. Maybe there'll be someone in the audience, or maybe, I don't know. Maybe there'll be someone who have more experience than me. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks. I'm thinking more like first, this is for Shannon and RJ. When I was looking through this, I kept thinking more about like how the information is presented, and having gone to the State of the Harbor in the past, I think what I love about that event is that it is, to your point, RJ, I think you said this before, it's like it's a very general audience, a lay audience. It's a lot of people who don't always come to all the coastal resiliency things. And so that's a wonderful opportunity to get at a lot of like summer residents and people who are interested in the works of the Land and Water Council and what's going on in the harbor, and don't always know that what they're gonna be hit with, right? So all that to say that I want to like stress that the more the either the presentation or the information that you're presenting can be simplified, the better. And I don't mean dumbed down. I mean just to whittle it down to what are the very main points. Like RJ, you and Emily deciding like what are the very few things that we need to get out of this or just need to get people to see. And then there will be some people who want all the information and want to read more. But like I think that one page is almost like I almost want to be like that's too much. You know what I mean? Like there's so much, and obviously it needs to be the standards themselves and everything it's talking about is obviously needs to be the documents that were shared have to be extensive. But I think what are you, aside from the community questions to get like your finger on the pulse, it's like, what do you want people to leave with? Like, what are like 3 points for them to take away and then find the most um, simplified way to get that across? Or like, or like even just saying like these two things are going to be coming before, you know, the Concom at some point, or these three things are going to be at a town meeting vote in the near future. Just so people know what is being asked of them. Because once again, I don't want to go, if you lead with what Pete was just saying of like you have to know your setbacks because you're gonna have to move your house. People are gonna freak out and not hear anything else you say. If you come at them negatively, they're gonna be like, no. And so if you come like, here's all this information we have, and like we are saying, like I suggested before, having these cartoon examples or like not Nantucket examples of like, here's how these kind of zoning things work. And then um uh like the how zoning protects us all, the infrastructure, the roads, the places we live to recreate, all that. Like it is for the community because there's definitely people that don't own houses on the water that are going to come to this, that are still voters. And so it's like you're building your support, and then you're like, these are the things we want you to know. But I think obviously if you hit them with everything, it's so much people are going to absorb it. And so those are just like, some very broad based things. Because I think the people that want the nitty gritty will either ask you for the nitty gritty or have already come to meetings. I think if they're at that level, I think, excuse me, I think that's it. I just want us to be really careful coming at people from a positive place. Like we're doing all this good work to help the community. Um, yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I think that's a really good point to keep it simple. And I think that's kind of what we're asking you for is what of these things do you think are the most important? Again, as Peter mentioned, in line with your coastal resilience plan, what do you think is the most important for people to come away with?
I agree with you, Sarah. We don't want to hit them with all the heavy stuff, but on the other hand, this whole thing is heavy. This place that we live is made of sand and gravel and some clay. It doesn't look fluid when you look at it, but when we all know when we're here and we see the storms and we see what water does to Nantucket land, it's very movable. So I think people need to know, I mean, as gentle as we can tell them the reality of what Nantucket, how Nantucket exists and how Nantucket can go away. And we don't necessarily have to hit them with the zoning, but someone should be prepared to say, well, sir, in Monomoy or wherever you live in Pocomo, the reason you can't move back is because you have a setback and you have ground cover percentages, and that information has to be available if it comes up. So that's what I was saying. Go ahead, Doug.
Thanks, Peter. Just a real quick note to add to what Sarah was saying. I think a good practice in PowerPoint hygiene is build your presentation as you have. I think it's really well done. But before you publish it, I think it's always healthy to challenge yourself to, as best you can, try to eliminate acronyms. And even after you've defined what LSCSF stands for, don't assume that the audience now understands it. And if it's feasible to use words like coastal floodplain, I think that's a whole lot more. I'm not going to get hung up on that language the way I would if I see LOR, LOML, LOMR-F. I've been on crack for 3 years. I don't know what that acronym is. So that's all I'm saying. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, and the presentation that you guys see is not what I will deliver to a general public lay audience. That is for a more advanced audience. And LOMRF is something that I usually skip over anyway because of that.
But if you wanted, sorry, thank you, Shannon. Maybe printed copies of frequently used acronyms might be a thing, could be handed out.
Yeah, I'll think about that. If I think for this kind of audience, I can actually I would stay away from acronyms. But I'll just think about, yeah, if I can't, then or if they're really necessary. That's a good point, Peter.
Okay, Joanna? You're on mute. Joanna.
Sorry, there we go. I think much to what other people were saying, people really need to be able to focus on how this affects them. And I think that having there be, it kind of comes to, if we change this, what happens for them? If we change this, what happens for you? Whether it's the wetlands bylaw, or if we have this coastal resiliency zoning, like what is the impact? And I think being specific, like, okay, and the examples, as RJ was saying, you have to, 25 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet, like what is it now? What is it going to be? So that people walk away with a very clear understanding of what will happen, and also when, like a timeline for when these things would go into effect, because people are buying and selling real estate, considering developing that, that's who this audience is largely going to be. Anybody who thinks they're doing any kind of speculative real estate buying or wanting to deal with issues with their own home, they want to know, is the Concom rules going to change in a year, or is it going to be 5 years? Are there going to be zoning regulations that are going to change in a year, or is it going to be 5 years? They want to know what it is they can do with their property. And I do think there'll be some sophisticated people who go to this who want to know those answers, and will ask those questions. Because it is a very much of, what about me? What is going to happen to me and my house? Or me and the properties that I own. And they want to know a timeline because they don't want to be surprised.
Okay, thanks, Joanna.
Okay.
Go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, just to add to what Joanna was saying about the timeline, and also the kind of history leading up to this, and including that, and then I just lost my train of thought. Just reiterating, I think probably a couple times throughout the presentation or the forum, that, this is very preliminary. We're just taking the temperature of the community right now. It does not mean this is absolutely happening like in 6 months or anything like that. We're just starting the conversation. I know there are 2 people from the public on here who haven't been following, coming to every single crack meeting. So just making sure that, we're just starting the conversation. This doesn't mean it's absolutely going to happen at the next town meeting or even in 3 town meetings. It's just gauging the temperature of the community. And this is like what has led up to the start of this conversation.
Thanks, Leah. Do we have any other comments? Any more questions?
So I'm wondering if if we should just, instead of, our original plan was to actually dive into some specifics and yeah, maybe have 3 to 5 specific provisions that we would put out there to the public and talk about. What I'm hearing from you all, though, is that maybe we're not there yet, and we should just stick with giving them the overview of, couch it in the CRP, which again, I am not the right person for that, but somebody from Nantucket can do that. And then I can give an overview of these bylaws at a higher level and not really go into details at this point. Or again, do we have 3 specific provisions that we do want to talk about? I mean, to me, the most important provision to talk about is whether the town wants to expand the floodplain, and with the expectation with sea level rise. We could talk about that one. Another kind of broader thing is specifically if we want to limit development in the existing floodplain, we could go with those kind of broader, simplistic things.
Shannon, yes, and listening to everybody, I think we're just perpetually in public outreach mode so that people hear what we're doing, constantly repeating, saying what we're doing. We all have our elevator speeches, and we all talk to our friends and family and whoever we meet when we're talking about this when it comes up. So what do you do on Nantucket? Blah, blah, blah. And you tell, and you're involved, and maybe this isn't the time to say, okay, we're looking forward to maybe doing these things. Maybe this is a good time saying these are options.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably be doing something like this in the future, but it's not happening next year. And just to put the ideas in people's heads, and hopefully we do get all the people or a lot of the people that are along the shorelines with their houses. Hopefully they are interested enough and care enough to come and listen and ask questions. Because if we whip it on them and say, okay, we're doing these things, in 5 years, this is going to happen. We don't know that. Honestly, I don't think we could say that right now. So why should we try and do that? But maybe we should be 3 or 4 of the topics that are most pertinent to Nantucket.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, totally agree, Peter. I would suggest maybe just focusing on not the model coastal resilience article itself, but the optional higher standards and the coastal resilience zone, and I think also the reconstruction after substantial damage. That is definitely going to be a polarizing topic. So to get early feedback on that would be good.
Okay. So then if we did 3, then we could do we want to expand the floodplain with sea level rise? We could do we want to have limits on expansion of development in our highest risk floodplains? And do we want to, the reconstruction after substantial damage is the only thing that starts to really get at retreat. So that could be our third one. And I would have to explain that a little more fully, but.
Yes, for that third one, absolutely. Because, as much as we want to handle people with kid gloves and be nice and positive, the reality that sucks is that in time, your house right there on the shore may be partially underwater. So how are we handling that?
Yep.
And you, the property owner, needs to understand that. We can't let people go away from this forum in denial that they have enough money to fight Mother Nature and they're going to hold back. There'll come a point where they're going to have to say uncle, and they have to know that we're serious about this, and this is why we're telling you now. And I don't want to do shock and awe, but at the same time, I don't want to hold anything back. Want to try and give it to them positively. I see that, but I don't know how you handle it. You can handle it and be as nice as possible, but people are going to come with preconceived ideas, and they're not going to hear you being nice. They're just going to be hearing the threat coming from the people with the brains or whatever at the front. So I don't think there's any perfect, nice way to say it. That's all.
Yep.
Go ahead, Doug.
Thanks, Peter. It strikes me as a little odd that we would be having an event like this and asking people what they'd like without first explaining why we are recommending, we collectively, we crack, Land and Water Council, Cape Cod, sorry, Shannon, I'm forgetting your
It's
organization's
okay. I
name.
have too many. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
Cape Cod Collective. It's just, I think first we need to present an affirmative argument for why these things are important, why they're effectively inevitable, and help people understand why these are likely to be coming. The exact form and shape that they take may be subject to debate and discussion, but the facts are the facts. If we leave it to, hey guys, we're thinking about doing these things, what do you think? I think that becomes too interactive and gives maybe too much credit to a public that candidly may be largely uninformed and fearful and looking for any way to stop what we see as an inevitability. So I guess it's a difference in perspective is how this goes, how we go about presenting this material is important. Thanks.
Doug, I wasn't saying, hey, what do you think? We're thinking about it. I'm saying we're probably going to be doing some of these things, and we're telling you that now, and we're looking for your feedback. But when I was saying, a lot of this is uncomfortable and we don't want to face this, we're the committee that's facing it for the town and advising the select board. So we're informing you, and we haven't passed anything. We haven't made recommendations to do anything, but these are the things that were the most probable things we're considering. So we'll of course take all their feedback, of course, but go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. I really want to first, I really agree with what Doug was saying about how this was presented, and I apologize if I made it sound like I think we should be super nice and sweet. I just don't think we should be aggressive. And I respectfully disagree with what Peter was saying about like you have like to the to the homeowners on the shoreline, you're gonna have to do this. This forum has always been for the whole community, and I don't want to assume that the community or that the forum is only for people on the shoreline. So I think what we're trying to do, to Doug's point of making our case, is like we have this coastal resiliency plan. Lots of data and work has come into this, and make the argument about why this is good for everyone in the community. Because if it comes to if at some future town meeting in 1 year, 3 years, whatever it is, or if someone's sitting on the Concom or they're sitting on the planning board, whatever it is, if there's a vote of something that has to do with any of this work, we want people to have a build-in understanding. You don't have to be a homeowner on the water to have a vote in our community. And so I think that's one thing that I would kind of just, I know that the information is the same, but just how we shape the argument or the discussion. And so I liked that affirmative argument of like, hey, here's, people are coming to this event because they trust the Land and Water Council who's put this on for so many years and has always brought really great informative presentations. So I think coming at it from that light and being, when I say leading with positivity, it's not like, oh, everything's rosy. And obviously I sit on the Coastal Resiliency Committee. I just mean, like present the information with the data, with the information that is truthful and positive. That this is the affirmative argument for what we're going to do. And then, as you said, get the finger on the pulse of like these three main things. Here's what we're thinking about. What are your concerns and questions, and how can we address them? And I've seen that Shannon give her versions of presentations many times, and I have full confidence in your ability to do this. I just, I think that thinking about this type of audience in the summertime has seasonal residents, has visitors, like some people who rent in the summer, and this Nantucket is a very important place to them and want to know how they can help. It has year-round community members, and so I'm thinking of the community, and that's why I was kind of rolling it back to those cartoon examples, because then everyone can put themselves in that spot, but it also no individual person is called out. And then if people have individual questions about their homes, we've laid the groundwork that they can then seek those answers, whether it's in that forum or not. I mean, I know if I was called out or felt called out in a forum, I wouldn't want to then ask more questions where I might be more finger pointed. I would then seek answers elsewhere. So I just think that there's going to be a lot of experts in the room that can help guide people to the correct information. But I think that those were just some additional comments to kind of advocate for emphasizing the community instead of individual homeowners, even though it's an individual homeowner decision, a lot of this work, but as the community.
Thank you, Sarah. Just to respond to what you're saying, I wasn't saying that we don't include the whole island and everybody. I was saying that we need to be prepared for the individual property owners who own shoreline property, who come to the forum, hear what we're saying, and have questions. And we need to be ready to answer those questions for them. Of course, we need to be ready for everybody else. I agree with you on that. Go ahead, RJ.
Thank you, Peter. So just briefly, thank you for all of your feedback so far. I think Shannon and I, with help from Leah and Emily, can totally sort of rework this a little bit. Just two things really. So from the Land and Water Council's perspective, this is a focus group with a raw bar after for us. We're trying to sort of gauge, or we wanted to, and I'm worried I wasn't clear enough about this when I introed this. We want to gauge the community we get to show up's reaction to when we first talked with Shannon, some of the more hot button provisions and things. Not to like come at them, just sort of to say like, this is what's being talked about. What do you think? Because we do it now, we don't have a situation at town meeting where we roll out a slide and everyone's like, this is the first time I've ever heard of this. So that is sort of why we had it originally structured this way, but I totally agree we could do it a little differently. There is a lot of material. That list is sort of Emily and I just being like, what can we talk about? And then sending it off to everybody. But we could definitely narrow it down. And as far as I hope more Mid-Islanders come, and I think we can be prepared to talk about all the impacts, but it's at the Great Harbor Yacht Club. And this is our 10th one, so maybe we start talking about holding it at other venues someday. But like, it does tend to be people who are interested in the waterfront area or have a stake in the waterfront area. I would say slight majority of the crowds we've had, but totally prepared to talk about. I mean, we just were installing the stormwater sampler on Easy Street today. Hopefully it rains. Everybody do a rain dance. But the stormwater infrastructure running all the way up India Street is fascinating, and it has an impact on our harbor for someone who's nowhere near where Easy Street is. So I hope more of those folks come. I really do. But I think we'll be prepared for whoever shows up and has something to say to us. And again, this feedback's been great so far. And if you guys think of something that we don't get to, shoot us a message. Thanks.
Thank you, RJ. Go ahead, Tim. You're on mute, Tim.
Sorry about that. Question for RJ. What do you expect in terms of coverage from Inky Mirror and the Current and stuff? How's that been in the past? Do they cover it a lot, or?
So they'll send somebody. I expect John Carl will be there. Maybe Dean will be there. How well they've covered it historically, and if they watch this, I'll probably get a text. I'll probably hear about it. But it isn't always the above the fold, except one time our eelgrass PI, Alyssa Novak, said that if we stopped fertilizing, then she wouldn't be here to give her eelgrass restoration presentation. And that was a leading headline that State of the Harbor, which is like 4 years ago now. But they
Okay.
do typically cover it. And I mean, if we have a lively conversation with the public about some of these provisions, it might get some good traction. But we advertise with them, and they do usually come to cover that beat.
Good. Yeah, good. It's just something to keep in mind too, that they'll be there and the message gets out through them as well. Thanks.
Thanks, RJ. Thank you, Tim. Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks. I have a question for Shannon. So I know you had a list of some other like Cape towns and maybe Martha's Vineyard towns, I can't remember, who are starting this conversation. How do you know how they're starting this conversation and like where they kind of are in the process of having these higher standards adopted? And just curious about that, because that'll be, I think, something to share too for the community. Like,
Yep.
we're not the first here.
Right. Yeah.
Although we are for a lot of coastal resiliency things, but these other communities are starting the conversation and this is how they're doing it.
Yeah, so far, the towns are just looking at the regulations through Conservation Commission that apply to the existing floodplain. So currently, no approach to bylaws yet, possibly in spring 2027, but focusing on what Conservation Commission can do first, and just focusing on that existing floodplain. So Chatham is set to adopt those regs tomorrow. So hopefully that actually happens. And then Harwich and Orleans are looking at them. Orleans has to actually go through town meeting to change their Concom regs, so they're going to be a bigger process. The week after the forum, I'll be in Eastham to talk with their Conservation Commission about it. West Tisbury is interested, and we've had an initial conversation with the Conservation Commission, but that has yet to proceed. So what usually happens is we start with the Conservation Commission, we give an overview to the commission itself, it goes to public hearing, they do all the appropriate notices and everything. And then there's a little bit of feedback from the public, but usually not much. And then we'll see. By then, at least Chatham should have adopted. Dennis has also been in the process of discussing them, but kind of waiting to see how Chatham goes.
All right. Thank you, Shannon.
Sure.
Do we have anybody else? Any comments? Any questions?
If I can just wrap up.
Sure. Yep.
So I think we'll skip the presentation that I have for the detailed provisions. I think we have a pretty good idea. RJ, Leah, and I have another meeting this afternoon to talk more about this, and we can figure out who the appropriate people are to handle pieces of this. I'll say that what I normally do is I present, here's our community and why we love it. Here's the flood risk from storms, from sea level rise. Here's the storm surge we've seen in the past. Even if it was in colonial times, we had a massive storm in 1635 that we've been able to recreate that storm surge. So kind of letting people know what can happen, what is more likely to happen with sea level rise. But you all are with the CRP a lot more advanced in that than most of the other communities that I usually engage with. So we'll figure that out. But I think we have a good handle on, and we'll be able to do this well based on all of this feedback. So thanks.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments from the committee and from Leah, are there any public comments? Anybody watching us joining this meeting, do you have anything to say? If you do, you've got 3 minutes to say it. Okay, no public comments. All right. Thank you very much, Shannon. Thank you, Leah and RJ. Okay. Item 7, discuss having one meeting for July, August, and September. Decide if it's the first or fourth Tuesday. Also decide if the July 14th meeting is moved to the Harbor Forum. Leah, what did you remind me of about the fourth Tuesday?
So the fourth Tuesday, Vince has requested to present to the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee. He has deliverables from the what he's been working on for the coastal resilience districts. And so he would like to present that to the committee prior to the August 8th select board meeting where he'll be presenting it to the select board.
So, and we have a meeting before that, before the 8th.
Yeah, so the second Tuesday would be July 14th, which is the same date of the forum. So I'm curious if I need to post that if a lot of CRAC members will be at the forum or not.
Wait, the 14th, I don't have a calendar in front of me. The 14th is a Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay. So you want, I'm getting a little confused here.
Okay, so usually in the summer you all do
Yes, I
one
know that.
meeting a month for sometimes June, July, August, September. So that's the broader question. And then for July, for July it'd be the fourth Tuesday to be able to incorporate the CRD feedback.
Right.
So we could either cancel the second Tuesday meeting, or if there's going to be quorum at State of the Harbor, I need to post it that
Oh, okay.
there is going to be a CRAC meeting at State of the Harbor.
I think you should post that by default, because I assume a lot of us will go to that. Just to cover us. It's no agenda, it's just that once there are 6 or more people there, then we get together, I call the meeting to order, and then you go your separate ways at the meeting, and then afterwards we get back together and we adjourn the meeting.
Yes, you would just have to be responsible for that. I'm not sure if I'll be at the State of the Harbor or not.
Right. So it seems better that we do that, but that doesn't use up one of our meetings for our one meeting a month in the summertime, and then we have the meeting on the fourth Tuesday of the month to be our real meeting before the 8th. Am I making sense? Sarah?
Yeah, thanks. I think, well, I would certainly enjoy one meeting a month and then not enjoy. I mean, we're all so busy in the summer. My real question is, what's on our agenda? Are we like, if Vince needs our, we're an advisory committee, so I'd first ask the select board or like things like Vince needing to talk to get advice or get feedback from this group before a meeting he has to go to. Like, what are the needs of the people who need us as an advisory group? To see how many meetings we need. If there's stuff we definitely have to go over, then I think we should have some not to see like I think we should have more meetings, but I don't want to arbitrarily cancel meetings if it's needed, I guess is the shorter way to say it.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Go ahead, Leah.
So Sarah, I would just say for July, that fourth Tuesday is needed for the CRDs, potentially for the retreat and relocation program. We'll be doing in-person workshops in early August for that. So we're still working out to see if we'll do a presentation to you all prior to that. But August and September, there's nothing that I know of that needs like immediate advisory too.
Okay. Do we have any more? Thank you, Leah. Do we have any more comments on whether we go 2 meetings or 1 meeting for those months? I mean, obviously for July, we're having 2 meetings, but the first meeting is just to say that we're there because it's a quorum and an open meeting, potential open meeting law violation. But we're not having any content. We're just opening the meeting and adjourning it. So the true meeting is the 4th Tuesday of that month. Go ahead, Joanna.
I mean, I would be for having one meeting each month, but I think on that meeting, I mean, with regard to August, don't forget that we also do something for Climate Change Month in September. So whatever we're planning for that or whatever engagement you need from this group on that needs to be organized in August.
I think we can pull that off in one meeting.
Yep.
So, any other comments on this? If not, well, okay, public comment. Okay. If not, I'll take a motion. I'll take a motion on this. Who wants to make one?
I make a motion to have a meeting on the 28th of July, the 11th of August, and whichever one in September doesn't conflict with other stuff, I guess. And one meeting in September, and then reevaluate for October.
Second.
All right. Motion has been made by Sarah Boyce, seconded by Tim Brain. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Joanna Roach,
Aye.
Emily Jenkins,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce,
Aye.
Christy Kickham,
I
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Doug Rose.
need to abstain. I'll be off of crack by then.
That's right. Okay. Liz Phelps,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay. Great. Thank you, guys. Okay. The perennial item, committee members, coastal resilience recommendations to the select board to be discussed at a future meeting. Okay. Hearing none. New business committee and natural resources department reports for planning board, conservation commission, harbor and shellfish advisory board, select board, advisory committee of non-voting taxpayers, and other committees. Any reports? No. Okay. Well,
Peter?
Yeah.
Peter, that's the section that we had two announcements.
Yes, I wrote those down. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Doug Rose for his years of service on the committee. Your insight, your extra work that you did behind the scenes, everything you sent to us that we didn't ask for. It's not that we didn't want it, it's just that we didn't expect you to do so much work as an unpaid volunteer. So thank you very much for your help and your knowledge. And we wish that you were staying on, but we understand why you're going. No big deal.
Thanks, Peter.
And then election of officers. What was the date we were doing that?
It'll be the first, or I guess the July 28th
July 28th.
meeting.
So that means whoever is thinking about knocking me off or becoming secretary or vice chairman, think about how you may want to serve when we do that, or who you want to nominate. Also, we have spaces to fill. We have the planning board space. We have Doug's at-large space. You could think about it this way: as you're serving on this committee, always be looking around for your own replacement. Think about people in the community that would fit this committee. And if you know anybody, we have the first round of appointments in this month already. The next round of appointments is in August. So I don't know what the deadline is. You could check with the town clerk's office, but if you have ideas, you can shoot them to me, or you can talk to those people and say, hey, this is a cool committee, I'm on it. I think it fits you, and then have them get in touch with me or Leah so they can get more of an explanation of what it is and be directed to the town clerk's office for an application and to follow the process. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I know one person who had submitted paperwork. for
Who's
this
what?
committee. What's that?
You know someone who submitted paperwork?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
I didn't ask them, so I'm not going to say who it is.
That's fine.
So I don't want to say, but I just so you know, there's at least one candidate that submitted recently for the August potential
Appointments.
selection.
Yep, appointments. And I know of 2 people who are thinking about it. So hopefully we get
Great.
somebody good. And Leah, you said that it's a work in progress for the planning board spot and for the non-voting taxpayers. That's correct?
Yeah, so usually the planning board does theirs in July. So we'll have to wait for that. And then the non-voting taxpayers, they had someone and I'm not sure if has accepted it or not. So still waiting to hear.
Okay. All right. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. So seeing discussion of upcoming meeting dates, we've decided that. Also a reminder that, a meeting will be posted for the July 14th State of the Harbor Forum, just to cover us. Okay, nothing else. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Who seconded?
Liz.
Liz, okay. Doug Rose, his final motion.
Aye. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. And Liz Phelps seconded. Roll call vote. Sarah Boyce,
Aye, and thanks, Doug.
Emily Junkins,
Aye.
Joanna Roach,
Aye, and also thanks, Doug.
Christy Kickham,
And Doug, you've been great. Thank you so much.
Tim Brain,
We'll miss you, Doug, and I.
and Doug Rose,
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
and Liz Phelps.
Aye. Thank you, Doug.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you so much, Doug. Have fun with your newfound freedom.
Thanks. Take care,
Okay.
everybody.
All right. See you all later.